Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast. I'm your host, Steve Creasy, and joining me today, we have the co-host of the show, Christy Pudick. How are you doing today, Christy?
Hi, I'm well.
And we have our special guest on today, Amy, coming all the way from Michigan once again. How are you doing today, Amy?
I'm doing great, Steve and Christy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, definitely. And I know it's kind of hard this time of year. It's just a beautiful time to be back up there in Michigan, late January. So trying to talk about Disney Cruise Line is a little bit tough for you guys, but we'll try and focus today and talk about sailing through the tropics maybe, huh?
Sounds great.
At least the sun is out today.
It is a nice sunny day. It's 8. Well, I think it warmed up, but it was 8 this morning when I went to work out.
Oh, man. Is that 8 Celsius or 8 Fahrenheit?
No, that'd be Fahrenheit.
Ooh.
8? We hit the 8.
Well, there we go. Well, today...
now. It's heating up.
Yeah, sorry, I keep talking over you. Okay, so today we are going to start... This is the second show of what we're going to do. Is kind of a DCL 101. Preparing for you for your first cruise with Disney Cruise Line. We haven't really done that. The first show we discussed maybe some different cruises to pick, and then also why or how to book your cruise and why maybe using a travel agent would be helpful for you. And today, Amy has agreed to come on, and we're going to talk about you sailed your first cruise in May of 2017. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I mean first cruise with the Disney Cruise Line. So
yeah, well, we had been Disney fans. You know, our first trip in 2014 to Disney World. My son was 4. 2015 went to Disneyland. 2016 Disney World. So it was time to plan our 2017 vacation. I said, wow, we haven't tried cruising yet. So I started with the Disney Cruise Line website and just started looking around and said, let's try to do a Disney cruise.
And I thought you'd be the perfect person to come on and kind of talk about your first experience picking the cruise, and then also kind of some of the things that you did ahead of time, getting prepared for it. And that's kind of what our discussion is going to be today, kind of getting prepared for that first cruising experience with Disney Cruise Line. So why did you guys had been on Norwegian Cruise Line before? So why did you decide to cruise with Disney, and why did you pick the cruise you did?
So with Norwegian, I had cruised with just myself and my family or my husband. But now that we have a child, you think, well, what's the best thing for a kid? You know, is he going to like Norwegian cruising? Is freestyle dining matter to him at all? Kind of, but we said, let's just try the brand that we know. We've loved our Disney vacations. Let's try Disney Cruise Line and see. We love Norwegian. It was great traveling with them, and we just sort of wanted to venture out and try Disney. So I talked to people at work, and deciding between the classic ships and the Dream class ships, we ended up choosing the Disney Dream or Fantasy is how I narrowed it down, because they have that cool aqueduct water slide. So, and having a 6-year-old at the time, that was a big thing, having this awesome water roller coaster on the ship. So I narrowed it down. That was my first step. And then I was looking at the 7-night on the Fantasy. They'd go Eastern, Western Caribbean, and then the 3 and 4 night Bahamian cruises. And I decided that we would do the 4-night Bahamas cruise for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, we love cruising with Norwegian. Do we want to switch to Disney Cruise Line? It's a big investment to do a 7-night cruise. And once you're brand loyal, you get a discount. So, with Norwegian, we even got a better price. So we said, let's see, first off, does he like cruising? Is this going to be as fun as the parks for him? And then, is it worth it compared for the extra cost compared to Norwegian? So that was our first step as to why we chose a 4-night. And then we also really liked that the Dream was going out of Port Canaveral. So because we're flying to Orlando, driving an hour to Port Canaveral, then cruising, we could kind of tie in a little Disney vacation with it. Like, all right, here's our backup plan. If the cruise is, not our favorite, then at least we've had a couple Disney trips or Disney nights. And then the third was that because it's a 4-night, it was less expensive of a cruise. And then looking into the future, if we booked an onboard booking, to save a space for and cruising within the next 2 years, that would give us a discount for a future cruise if we go on a longer cruise. So those were sort of the things I considered when I picked the 4-night.
Well, perfect. Yeah, you're way ahead of a lot of people as far as even understanding that with the discounts and really kind of planning ahead, and also having Port Canaveral. That was a little bit of familiarity by being able to fly into Orlando. I know that's one of the things that's been tough for us. Is every cruise that we've been on, it's been a different port, and trying to figure out, well, how do you get to the ship and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's maybe a good segue to go into. So once you had the cruise booked, and you'd been on NCL before, what were some of the resources that you started to look for, and what were you kind of thinking as you started to prepare for the cruise?
Well, so going back to my Disney World and Disneyland vacations, my biggest resource has always been, I'm kind of a book person. I like online research if I have specific questions, but just to get an overview, I like just sitting down with a book. So I got the unofficial guide to Disney Cruise Line and just sat and read it cover to cover, and, read a little bit about the history of the Disney cruise ships, comparing them, checking out the different ports that were available. And I just got to learn. That's, I guess I should have backed up and said, that's kind of how I learned a lot of that stuff, from reading on the website and then reading the book. Yeah, this is the decision that we need to do a 4-night before we do a 7-night.
Perfect. And did you, so you use a little online, did you listen to any podcasts before, just out of curiosity, as far as being able to give you some helpful tips that way too?
I did. I listened to, which ones? I know Dis Unplugged talked a little bit about Disney cruising. The Disney Cruise Line blog had a couple, like how to pick your stateroom and a couple overviews of different ones. And then I'm not sure I had found out about you before or after we cruised, but I've been listening to yours ever since I found out about it.
Well, thanks. And, okay, so a little bit of a podcast, and you use the unofficial guide. I love those guides, by the way. We had Len on and Aaron the last show, and the thing that I really like about the guides, at least, is they give you their opinion. Now, if you don't agree with their opinion, that's one thing, but I like having a guide that kind of gives you an opinion. I'm not sure if you found it that way, too.
Absolutely, because you just reading the facts, and of course on the Disney website, everything's awesome and amazing and perfect, and it spoiler, it was pretty awesome and amazing and perfect. But it's like you just you kind of want to have an unbiased opinion, and people that have cruised before and people that have cruised other cruise lines, how is this going to work for our family? It's a good amount of money for a vacation. Definitely.
So, so use a guide, use some online resources and whatnot. And so, how did that help you book the cabin that you selected, or what was your thoughts when you started to book? Probably one of the first things people think about, besides the cruise itself, is where they're going to stay on the ship.
Right. Well, I've been on cruises before and did not have any problems with motion sickness, but I historically do on like rides that spin or on long car trips. So I chose the same cabin like I did in Norwegian, choosing sort of center of the ship and a balcony. So if I felt like I needed to go out on the balcony and look out over the horizon, I'd be able to do that.
And Christy, do you have any thoughts on that as far as like picking that first cabin, besides just price and what you can afford?
Well, and that is the thing. Some people just need to book a cabin category based on what they can afford. The one thing I'll also say, if you're doing a 4-night or a 3-night Bahamian cruise, at least on Disney, motion does not have to be a concern. That ship does not go fast enough to ever experience any motion. It's so close. And it was interesting when we did the 5-night last summer, I had never experienced a ship with less movement issues. I do find that for everybody's benefit to know that the Fantasy, I don't know if it's just their stabilizers or what, but man, I feel more movement on that ship than any other. And so if there are people that have motion problems, and I am one of them, and you guys have heard, we do tend to book concierge when we can, and those cabins are mostly, at least on the newer ships, in the front of the ship, and so you feel it more. And I've always been fine, but you feel it more. And so people just have to know that. And for whatever reason on the Fantasy, man, you really feel it. And part of it is because you're going pretty far, but it's also just something about the ship. I would say middle of the ship, middle decks, you're going to feel less. For whatever reason, it is more expensive to book the higher cab deck you go. But you do feel more motion in higher decks, so that is something. But people want to be in the higher decks, so it's just, it's a supply and demand, and it's for whatever reason, in every cruise company, the higher that you go, the more expensive it is. One thing I would note to people that are booking a cabin is to look what's around you. If the movie theater is directly above or below you, you're going to potentially hear that. If Kids Club is directly next to you, you're going to potentially hear that. So on one of our cruises, we were in a guarantee room, and the room we got, it was one of those, I think, 5th floor with the big balcony, and the balcony was awesome. And the cabin location was fine, except it was directly adjacent to the Kids Club, and at like 3 a.m., they would clean in that Kids Club, and I don't know what they were doing, but it was like they were pounding on our walls. And so once I did finally just have to go and say, whatever you're doing, can you stop? And so they work much quieter after that for the rest of the cruise. But so look around you to see what is around you. And that's one of the advantages of having a travel agent, is because they'll know to help people to do that as well in most cases. And then if you could avoid being directly below the pool deck, that is a benefit. But again, with Disney, some of those cabins you just can't. You can't have cabins on each side of you and all above and below you. And so if you can, it's better. And if you can't, then, bring a little noisemaker.
Good tips.
Which I actually recommend. We're going to talk about packing in a minute, but I recommend having an app or bringing something that makes noise anyway, because there are always people walking through the halls, and that the sound, just like at Disney World, it travels. And just having a little something that provides background noise is really nice.
I've always found those beds are so comfortable, I don't even wake up. I'm a pretty deep sleeper, so yeah, if you're a light sleeper at all, definitely have like a white noise. Some kind of white noise in the background would probably help.
And I'm kind of a light sleeper, but I feel like we had a nice and dark and quiet trip. It was nice.
So let's go into packing then, kind of thinking about what you were going to bring with, and how did you prepare for that or plan for that? And Christy, I think you had some points on it as well.
Yeah, for packing, I had a regular packing list. They're easy to find online, and I kind of had a Disney packing list that I sort of modified. We're going to go to the Bahamas. It's going to be summery, shorts and T-shirts and that sort of stuff. So any old packing list kind of works for that stuff. But then there's extra stuff that you sort of don't think of that you would need on a cruise. So some of my favorite things that I brought, in Disney World, you have your Magic Band to get in and out of your room. Well, the card doesn't go on your wrist. They don't have those. So one thing that was useful was having a lanyard to keep our room card in. So it could be used for charging, getting in and out of the rooms. And then I had a very small crossbody bag. So I was able to slide my card in there, my cell phone to use the app, Disney Cruise Line app, and the navigator and the wave phone. So I could keep a few things with me without carrying a bunch of stuff around or shoving it in pockets. And then the second thing that I thought was awesome for the cruise was a waterproof case for my cell phone to take to the beach and to the pool. And then you get unlimited soda refills on the ship, so you might not have thought of bringing a travel mug or a cup with a straw kind of thing, which was awesome. And then at some point, someone had mentioned to bring a beach bag, because you pack all your suitcases and stuff. You're like, oh, we are getting off the ship, going to the beach. We'll need a beach bag. So that was very useful. And then hand in hand with that, this was a tip I used in Disneyland to save a spot for the parade, was a very small beach blanket that folds up to your hand size. So I had a Matador blanket, which is it literally fits the size of a cell phone, but it unfolds 63 by 44. And then as I was looking around, I found, and that's $30 on Amazon, a Matador blanket. But I found another blanket also on Amazon, called the Equileo pocket blanket. A little bigger, 56 by 71, and maybe a tiny bit takes up a little more space, maybe 2 hand sizes instead of one, but still very, very small. But it was thicker and was great for the beach, and it was waterproof, and it kind of was a great small, you don't want to lay beach towels out, and they give you towels to dry off with, but to sort of not get sand and everything, it was nice to have a blanket along. And then inside the room, it's a good sized cabin compared to other cruise lines, but to help keep the room organized, I had really heavy duty metallic hook, I think also on Amazon. I have a Prime membership. Everything comes from Amazon.
What did people do? How did parents parent before Amazon? I still don't understand how they could have done it.
Amazon. It's my go-to. Heavy-duty magnets? Check. I had 4 of those on the walls because every surface in the cruise room is magnetic. So I had 4 of those up, and then I had 4 little clips like to hold paper, and I had just lined up, okay, lanyard here, hat goes here, hang the navigator here. Here's our tickets for our next shore excursion, clipped, all kept in order. We didn't lose stuff. And then, just the regular stuff, like you're going to use your phone around the ship. You have it on, Wi-Fi mode, so the battery doesn't get used up as much, airplane mode than Wi-Fi. But it's still nice to have a portable charger to charge it when you were and not have to stay in your room to wait for your phone to charge. Ziploc bags for wet clothes. And then we had an autograph book, all that kind of stuff. Another thing I should mention is at Port Canaveral, this is sort of a Port Canaveral specific, there's pressed pennies that you can get before you get on the cruise for the different ships and for Disney Cruise Line. And those pressed pennies aren't available anywhere except as you're boarding the ship. So if you said, oh, I forgot to get those, we're getting off the ship, you can't get to that area. So press them on your way in, not on your way out. So I brought, pressed pennies in our travel-on or carry-on stuff as well.
Are there pressed pennies anywhere on the ship? Like different ones, but are there any?
I did not see any, no. And then, of course, so that was and I actually can say that pretty 99% positive. That's it, because we explored the whole ship and we're big pressed penny people. But so, of course, in your luggage gets sent straight to the ship to go on. So you need your carry-on, and you really want to make sure you have your bathing suit and hat in there, any prescription medications, sunglasses, sunscreen, your camera, your documents, that sort of stuff was all with us. And then the rest of the stuff just got packed on board. The one tip I would say about packing would be it's so easy to overpack. You want to pack 2 outfits or 3 outfits for every day, just in case the weather's hot, the weather's cold. And I feel like I had a ton of extra clothes I didn't need. So I think next time, part of the time, I would sleep in a outfit like leggings and a t-shirt, and then I would get up in the next morning and work out in the same outfit. So I'm like, why did I even bother packing pajamas? I didn't need these. So that's whatever you pack, you can just take out a quarter of it and you'll probably have plenty of clothes. And then I think the last really helpful thing I had along were the little battery operated tea light candles, the little battery ones that you flip that switch. In the middle of the night, you're looking for something. You don't want to flip the lights on the whole cabin, and you get a flash like the beam of light, around waking people up. And so the little tiny lights were just enough of a glow to see what was going on and look what you're looking for, and then have a little night light by my son's bed. So those were some of the things that are, in addition, your regular packing, you want flip-flops, you want your bathing, all that kind of stuff. But in addition to the regular packing stuff, those were probably my favorites. Oh, and the magnets. We did the magnet decorating of the door. That's like a big thing on the Disney cruise ship, is kind of to help find your door. You pop a magnet on, and I had made a bunch of magnets, so our door was all decorated with all our fun magnets. That was a fun thing we did on the ship.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me the first time I went on, how many people decorate their doors. And if you want another spot to go to, you go to Etsy and see like about 1 million different variations on there if you want to go check out some different spots, if you don't want to create your own, I suppose. Yeah,
that's right. A ton of ideas.
Yeah. Go ahead,
on the decoration front, there are people. I have a client who actually, so the concierge doors are, at least on the newer ships, are not as magnetic. So stuff doesn't stick as well to them. And you can't tape anything on any doors. So she is actually booking, she has booked both categories, booked concierge and booked like the standard cabins. She's booked herself just in the family veranda because she wants to be able to hang her Christmas lights. There are ways apparently to do this magnetically. Wants to hang her Christmas lights on her maritime cruise.
Awesome. Important stuff to think about.
So people get really into their magnets.
That's awesome. I have a huge package. I had all these ideas, and then I was sick for a couple days. I had the flu before our cruise. So I had all this time where I didn't really have energy to do much, but I could just sit there and cut little things out. So I cut a little piece of paper, I laminated. I got the little Mod Podge, a little glass magnet glue gun. So yeah, I've got a crazy amount of magnets. I should try to get you a picture.
So you touched on a whole bunch of things there that I think are kind of worth going back and talking about too. Lanyards. Do you do anything besides lanyards, Christy, when you cruise?
No, my mom uses a lanyard. We just put them in our pocket or our purse or whatever. Obviously, my husband doesn't have a purse, but he usually has a pocket. So we're not lanyard people, but there are lots of people who are. So with your first Disney cruise, you would have to bring your own lanyard. After your first one, you actually get them. So
Ooh,
unless you wanted...
I'm like, ooh, free little thing.
Yep. You also get like a beach bag after your first cruise too, but they changed the gift. So it might not still be a beach bag. It was like some sort of shoulder half backpack situation.
Okay.
So we'll have to see at the time. You can Google this stuff because somebody's posting it somewhere, what the current Castaway Club gift is. But so for your first cruise, if you're a lanyard type person, you would just want to make sure you have one or that you have it. You bring it with you, or you could buy it on the ship.
Yeah, they definitely have it on the ship you can buy. Also, the waterproof phone cases, those like plastic sleeves, those are awesome. And I mean, they're great to use besides just on cruising, but they sell them on the ship as well, but obviously you probably get a lot cheaper if you bring one with. So that's a great tip as well. Also, the Navigator app. So one thing that you're going to want to do before you board the ship is you're going to want to download the Disney Navigator app because that has a lot of uses in it. And I found that we went on Norwegian here just in September, and Norwegians, they're different, but Disney's, as far as being able to text back and forth, was consistent, whereas Norwegian was kind of a little bit inconsistent. We'd like get something like 3 or 4 hours later, but Disney's is awesome on the ships that we've been on as far as being able to, once everybody's got that on their phone, being able to talk to each other rather than to have to talk on the Wave phone. And the Wave phone is just like a regular phone. It's in each one of the staterooms. You get 2, I believe.
Mm-hmm. 2.
Yeah. So you could technically carry those around with you on the ship as well, but we've always found it a lot easier once you get that Navigator app downloaded to talk to each other back and forth by texting through that. And they've got some fun little Disney emojis that you can use, and all of the day-to-day activities are listed in there as well. So it's kind of an easy, rather than using the paper Navigator and carrying that around. If you're tired of that or don't want to carry that around, that's on your phone as well. So I think that's a great tip to make sure you've got that downloaded before you go.
And the Wave phones, we hardly use those at all. But the Kids Club said that if they needed to reach you, that they would call the Wave phone, which is why we were lugging that around. But we didn't use them to call each other. I don't even think once.
Right.
But the app is awesome. It was like, you could say, I want to know when all the Drawing Academy, are. You could mark it as your favorite, and then it would pop up the whole rest of the cruise when they were happening. So instead of trying to search through, when is it tomorrow? Are they having it again tomorrow? You could actually click it as a favorite, and once you marked it, it would flag all those as a favorite activity. And I thought that was pretty awesome. And even like the menus, they hadn't brought us like I had mentioned on our first podcast discussion, our wait service was awesome. The first night it was a little slower, but once they got to know us, it was a very quick paced meal, as we, with a child. So the first night, the dessert menu hadn't come yet. And I was like, hey, let's check out this app. It's got the dessert on here. So when he walked up, we ordered our dessert he's like, oh, you already know what you want. We don't even have the menu. I'm like, it's on this little phone thing. So it worked out. Yeah. So, yeah, it was good. It was good app to use.
Now we talked a little bit about the app and packing and everything like that. So let's talk about what you guys did on the ship and kind of preparing for that, Amy. And before we do that, one of the things that Disney does do a good job of, and you need to kind of stay on top of it, is once you've booked your cruise, you're going to start getting emails from them as it gets closer as far as getting prepared for it. And they give you links to go to their website. And if this is your first cruise, you're going to be able to book 75 days out experiences on the ship and also your port excursions. And why that's important to get on it right away is once you've cruised with Disney, you become, after the very first one, you become part of their Castaway Club membership, and that's their kind of what am I trying to find?
Repeat cruiser.
Yeah, repeat cruiser. That's their program for
incentive program or whatever.
Yeah. So
loyalty.
Yeah, there you go.
Loyalty program. There we go. Pull it out of me. So anyways, after your first cruise, you're a silver member. After your 5th cruise, when you're moving into your 6th, you're gold. And then once you've done 10 cruises and you're sailing on your 11th, you're platinum. And each one of those has the ability to book a little bit sooner. So platinum is 120 days out. gold is 105, and then silver, which is probably the biggest category of people booking, is 90. And you'll find that things that are very popular, like certain spa experiences, or I know Christy's talked in the past about the cabanas and Castaway Cay, those are going to book up right away, and you may not even have access to it. So really take a look at those emails and make sure you're on top of it if there's something you really want to do. So going into that, how did you kind of...
And
Go ahead,
you have
Christy.
to be paid in full. So just a note is because sometimes the paid in full, the due date for your payments is after when you could book. You have to be paid in full in order to be able to do any of the pre-reserving of items.
Good point. So how did you kind of attack that one, Amy, as far as once you started planning what you're going to do on the ship and then maybe look into the port excursions?
Yes, exactly. So what we did, we booked it 75 days. And it's sort of like if you've done Disney World before where you do your online check-in ahead of time, it's almost the same thing. You have to enter, all your information, and then you can start booking all this fun stuff. So part of my research, in addition to reading the book, the unofficial guide, was on the DCL blog. You can actually get copies of the Navigator ahead of time where they're all online and they say they don't change very much. So I'd actually printed off a copy of our same cruise and kind of highlighted the stuff that we were interested in and to see where stuff would fit in and what we wanted to book when. For our sea days, I knew for a fact that we wanted to do Jedi training, and it was only offered once on the entire cruise. So I kind of put that aside. And then I asked my son is how we decided what port adventures. And I said, all right, we're going to be, going to Castaway Cay. We're going to be going to, the Bahamas, Atlantis. Do you want to go there? Do you want to go? What do you want to do? And his thing was swim. I want to go to the beach. I want to build sandcastles and I want to swim. So I said, all right, well, and I looked into Atlantis, and I'm sure it would be a fine excursion if you're really into all the water slides. And I said, there's water slides, we're watching videos. He's like, wasn't there a water slide on the boat? I just want to go to the beach. I said, all right. And then I'd heard about Atlantis is their beach is right on the ocean, and it's often really choppy, and sometimes the beach closes. So I'm like, well, heck, if we get all the way there and he doesn't want to do the water slides because he's already been on a water slide and the beach is closed, now what? So I started pulling up one way you can search on, you could go under your ship, the Dream for us, and then it lists all the excursions for, say, Nassau. And then you can click and narrow it down. And what I narrowed it down to was stuff that was splash-tacular, which is how they call it. And it just listed all the beach trips. So I was actually on a Disney Facebook group for our specific cruise. And people had cruised on there before, and some of my other friends. I just said, what are some reviews and what can you do? And the biggest one that came out as a fun trip was the Blue Lagoon beach trip. So it was, so I just kind of asked for reviews, and I looked online and found the website and researched a little bit. It had good reviews, so we booked that one, and that's how we chose for that one. For our Castaway Cay day, I tend to overplan, and I just didn't want to plan everything. So, you could get the package where you get the inner tube, and you get a bike rental, and you get the snorkel gear. And we ended up just doing the snorkel gear. We decided to do the 5K also that morning, which you can't book ahead of time. Apparently you book when you get on board. And then a side note, when I got on board to book it, they said, oh, you can't book a 5K. You already have snorkel equipment rental. I'm like, well, that's in the afternoon. We're going to run in the morning. And, well, sorry, just show up at the thing and it'll be fine. Well, then I checked back again later and asked a different person, the next day. And they said, oh, no, you just do this and then this on the computer. And here you go. Here's your tickets. You're all registered. So FYI, if you happen to want to do two things that are simultaneous, on the same day, because snorkel equipment just is all day. It doesn't have 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. or whatever. So it showed as a conflict in the computer. But so that's how we did it. I just said we want to just chill out. And then when you see the Navigator, you look and there's characters available, and there's stuff in the kids club, and there's all this stuff going on. It's I just feel like we don't need to pay for a bunch of extra stuff. It's our first Disney cruise. Let's just take advantage of what we haven't done the free stuff yet. Might as well go check that stuff out. And so that's how we kind of picked.
I advise people for for Castaway Cay, especially for their first cruise, to not really book anything. You can book everything on the island that day that you need. The snorkel equipment's not going to sell out. The rafts are still going to be there. You're not going to know what you want until, in my opinion, until you get there.
Yeah, that's
especially
right.
if you've never experienced it before. So just, go. Obviously, if you want a cabana, you could get a cabana. But that's the only other, or if you know already you don't want the beach day and you want to go parasailing, you need to book that in advance. Or if you want to do the Stingray experience because you don't want a complete beach day, you would book that in advance. But I think Castaway Cay is like the most perfect island out there. And so I think you can definitely get away with less.
Absolutely. It is just beautiful there. And actually, in retrospect, I don't know if I would have rented the snorkel equipment before. I don't know if I'd mentioned this to you guys before, but I had ordered prescription goggles to snorkel with because I can't see. And what's the point of snorkeling if you can't see? So, and I had packed them super logically on the same day as Pirate Day, because Pirate Night is the same night as the cruise, or Castaway Cay. Could not find them. I tore the room apart. I'm like, I looked in our suitcase, I could not find these goggles. So I get out there and I'm like trying to snorkel. I'm like, I can't see anything. So what's the point? So then we got back at night and we're getting dressed in our pirate costumes. I unfolded my pirate costume and there were my goggles. I'm like,
oh no,
they were in the same day. But just so note to self, if you're packing by day, pack in time. put your goggles the day before or something.
Or do like my 7-year-old does and just pull everything out of the bag at once trying to find it, so then you just have chaos everywhere. So a couple points on all that. Awesome points, Amy. I don't want to take anybody down the wrong road. The days that we're talking about as far as booking, that's booking through Disney Cruise Line. Obviously, you can do things yourself when you pull into port. You can go through other different organizations to book shore excursions as well. So when we talk about 90, 100, 520, that's actually booking through Disney itself. So there's a lot of different ways that you can book it. So if for some reason you go on Disney and the cruise line and their shore excursions sold out and you really want to do it, there is probably another way to be able to do that through another company, or maybe even through that same company. Well, actually, probably not through the same company, but through possibly a different company, and still get that done, like going to swim with the manta rays or whatever else down in Grand Cayman.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And wait and see on board too, because there's going to be people that are going to cancel. And leading up to the cruise, people are going to cancel, especially just before. So you can cancel on Disney. One of my favorite things is that you don't actually pay for your excursions until the cruise, and you can cancel up to 3 days before the cruise. And I believe you can cancel once you're on the cruise without any penalty, as long as it's like a certain number of days before the shore excursion. But to that end, people cancel. So if there's something you want to do, keep checking back online prior to the cruise. And then also once you get on board, they keep a cancellation list or a backup wait list for most of the major excursions, and they can let you know if there's a opening.
And as far as like onboard stuff, most of the stuff they have a character dining that you can do, which we've never done. You guys have done that, right, Christy?
We have.
And
it's not on the shorter cruises.
It's on the 7-night, yeah.
Or the 5-night. It's on the 5-night as well.
Oh, okay.
And you can book those ahead of time now, too, as well. It used to be, I think, you booked them when you got on the ship, but now you can actually book those ahead of time as well. The other one that's really popular, we've done it twice, is we've only been on the classic ships. The Magic and the Wonder is Palo or Remy. You can book that ahead of time, too. And I know that especially, it seems like the sea days sell out, so because those seem to be pretty popular days. If you want to do brunch or dinner, you're probably going to want to try and book those ahead of time. Did you do any of those, Amy, by any chance?
I didn't. It was that same philosophy. Like, we haven't done any of the free stuff. They are free, included stuff.
Right.
So let's just do the included stuff. And we were actually huge fans of all the dining. I'm not sure we're going to do it. We may or may not do Palo, but I don't know. We loved all the regular dining. It's just perfect up our alley, the type of food we like to eat at all 3 restaurants. So we did not, and we may not, it's like, man, this is included. We're giving up a free meal. It's like great food.
So Palo, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I've never really said this before, but, Palo's amazing, really good food. But in all honesty, we did it on our first 2. We didn't do it on the last one. I don't think we'll do it going ahead, just because for us, I mean, we can go out and eat dinner at a nice place where we live. And
us too.
And to be honest, I would rather go and experience like the Comedian or do, that kind of stuff on the ship that's going on. I'm not a huge food person. I do appreciate good food, obviously, or I do appreciate good food. So for us, the dining rooms fit, and I would rather be out doing some other things rather than spending 3 or 4 hours having dinner at Palo. But
Us too.
but definitely
Yeah.
worth
We
trying
have-
if you like food.
You
It's
could
awesome.
spend 4 hours having dinner at Palo How. Even if we try to make that meal take long, it does not take 4 hours.
Well, okay, maybe
but I
4
get
was
what
a
you're
little bit
saying.
of an exaggeration, but I think the 2 times we went, it was a good 2.5 to 3 hours we were up there eating, and so like I don't want to say it's bad. I don't want. This is just my opinion, I guess. This is
Right.
what we've come up with, so we kind of agree with you, Amy.
Yeah, right. We live in, Detroit area. So we have Ann Arbor one way, Detroit the other way, great restaurants everywhere. So we have options to go to really great restaurants. And maybe if you didn't have that, you might want to consider it. But with the food on the ship, we just loved it all. So it worked out great for us.
Yeah, that being
We use those nights as a date night because my mom is typically with us on these cruises. And so on our first cruise, we didn't, though. And so I would say on your first cruise, and especially because a lot of people with first cruises are, everything is sold out, because by the time it gets to me, here's the thing. It's your first cruise. You're going to have plenty to experience. You don't need to do everything. Once you've done
Right.
2 of them, and just like us, the first Disney cruise we were on, my mom wasn't with us, and we used the nursery once we saw a movie, but we didn't use it to go to dinner or do other stuff. So for us, we used it on future cruises. So it ends up being about, $85. It depends on what you tip. So it's like the $60, $30 per person for the meal, and then
The wine
tip in
pairing.
there. And then the wine if you're going to do that. We can't get that nice of a steak dinner at home at a nice steakhouse for $80 or, $85, whatever it is, plus the wine. So, those are $250 meals at home. So if you look at it like price wise like that, you are saving. I could do without Palo dinner. I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite, but it's my husband's favorite. And so we have to go for him because I need brunch. Brunch is so fun. So we go to brunch because I have to. So like he goes to brunch for me and I go to dinner for him, and we both just leave the ship a few pounds heavier.
I'll have to look at the brunch. That might be a good tip. We'll look at that because, lunch we just kind of grab wherever. So
Yeah,
maybe
it's really
we'll
nice.
look at
It's a
brunch.
really nice
I'll have to look at the
experience.
menu. Yeah, I'll go look at the menu.
One other thing about registering for stuff, a couple of other things of activities that you can pre-register for ahead of time. You can pre-register for the princess meet and greet. So it's
And
basic.
Frozen.
Yes. So the princess meet and greet is it there, and there's no cost, but you need to have a ticket. It's basically a line of princesses, and you stand in line and you walk up to the one princess and get your picture taken, or your child, or whatever. And then you go to the next princess and you get your picture taken, and you go to the next, and there's like 5 of them. The other meet and greet is Anna and Elsa that you can prepare, you can make in advance, and that is usually an animator's palette, and they have a little whole Frozen situation. And then again, you show up at your appointed time, you stand in line, and you get your picture taken with Anna and Elsa, and it's nice.
Fun. We were actually going to do that. It said Frozen Friends, and we assumed that meant Olaf. Well, Olaf was not there. My son was like, not for Anna and Elsa. So we ended up turning our tickets back in at the desk, and hopefully someone got to go that didn't have tickets.
Well, there you go. Those are talking about Palo there and Remy, I guess. That's what makes cruising fun. You have 3 different people, 3 different opinions, and you can do whatever you want with lots of different options.
And they're all awesome cruises.
Yeah.
All awesome vacations, yeah.
One other thing that we haven't talked about was the kids clubs as far as pre-registering. Did you pre-register your son beforehand for that as well?
We did at the same time. When we signed up for our shore excursions and that, one of the options was to click on the kids club and get him registered. And you had to set up a secret password that you had to mention, and you had to list all the people that could pick him up, even yourself. So like I had registered him, but I didn't put my name. I just added my husband's name. So they're like, well, all we have on here is, Jeffrey, not Amy. So I said, well, okay. So we added me to the list so I could pick him up and drop him off. So then when we got there, it was just one less thing to do. He was already registered for the kids club.
The kids club start at age 3, so the first one's 3 through 12, and your child has to be potty trained to be able to go there to the kids club.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So just one thing to remember: they do have a nursery, and I kind of looked this up right now, price wise. That's got limited availability in it, and you can pre-register the days. I'm not sure how many hours per day you can register them for. I know there's
I think it's 10 hours for the whole cruise.
Okay.
I think. But
Um,
when you get on board, if there's availability, you can add it. We didn't have a child that age, but I remember reading that someplace.
Right, but if you if you are traveling with a toddler, you can also pre-register beforehand. So that might be something you want to do if you know a day that you want to get a Palo, or there's like some day that you've got something planned while you're on board. It's $9 an hour for the first child and $8 an hour for the second. That's the pricing as of now, which obviously can change. But another thing that you can pre-register for.
Another thing that I had stumbled upon it. You could book your spa treatments, which I did, but we had wanted to do the rainforest room, which people said it's limited, like there's limited amounts. So you want to do that the first time you get on the ship. Well, I had called, and you could actually gift it to somebody, 2 visits to the rainforest room. Like, say, my mom wanted to gift us, 2 days, or I wanted to gift them to us. So I bought 2 rainforest tickets ahead of time. And then I also pre-purchased our wine package ahead of time. It's like a gift came to our room, and there was a little card, and we got a bottle of wine each night with dinner that was all included. So that was something that, like, technically you couldn't register like online, but if you called the gift department, we were able to get the rainforest rooms booked ahead of time. So it guaranteed us our visit and the wine also.
I think you can actually do it online. It's just in the pre-gift. It's like the pre-purchase gift section or whatever.
Oh, so maybe I called and I didn't have to. It's possible.
But it's not in the same as like registering for the cruise.
Correct. Yeah, it's a little different.
So,
but now, same thing. In hindsight, I don't know if I would have done the rainforest room. As much as I've loved them on Norwegian in the past, and it was great, I felt like it was only 4 days. There's so much stuff I want to do, and we're sitting in here relaxing, and I really want to go out, So it's like, how relaxing is this if I'm like, okay, can we go? Have we spent our allocated time yet? So I'm like, I think I would have taken that time and spent a couple hours in the adult section, and my son was in the kids club, and just kind of hung out in the hot tub over there in the, that kind of area instead of spending on the 4-night. And the 7-night, maybe you could squeeze a rainforest room day in, but there was a lot to do in a short amount of time.
Yeah, if you were doing a 14-day Panama Canal cruise, you might be able to squeeze one in then, huh?
Yes, that's right. For someone we know. 14 Panama Canal.
Yeah.
Jealous.
So I've got 2 more questions for you, Amy, before maybe we wrap it up. How did you prepare your son for the cruise, as far as like what did you talk to him about ahead of time, and what did you show him online? Did you watch YouTube videos about the ship, or how did you guys do that?
Yeah, that's right. That's probably the biggest resource for most of everything we do is watch stuff on YouTube, watch the videos. The Disney Cruise Line does a free DVD they send, and also as they send it to you, like a hard copy, they also send you links on the email. So we actually watched a ton on the computer, all like what the kids club is like and what the ship is like and what that ship is like. And then when that came in the mail, we watched it again on the TV, and then, some family Sunday dinner, everyone's over, let's watch this, CD. And they're like, we're not even going. It's fun. So those are probably videos are probably the biggest. And then I would Google pictures of stuff, like here's the water slide in Castaway Cay. Here's what this looks like. And I would show him pictures and stuff. And here's, the kids club looks like this. And he loved it. So he really was excited. I mean, watching people do point of view videos on the water slide. So mostly YouTube videos, almost totally.
Do you have anything else, Christy, that we haven't touched on that as far as like planning for that first cruise?
I want to talk about registering a little bit more. For any cruise, you need to do a pre-registration, or you should, because it makes it quicker at the port. And then at the very end, you're going to print something off. It's your boarding pass, basically, which you'll show the people as you're going through security and stuff like that, where they know you're actually allowed to be there. With Disney, it's sort of like Disney World, and it's actually something I don't like, but it's again that I have to be on the computer at such and such time so that I can get my ship arrival or my port arrival time. So what time are you going to arrive at the port? You have to pre-register for that. And that's at the very end of the registration. You also then get your shore excursions again after you've registered. So my tip is to make your registration process as simple as possible. Click through and indicate that you're driving to the port instead of giving them your flight information. You can go back and give that to them later. Say that you're basically getting dropped off by friends and family or something. You can say that you're using driver's license instead of a passport and birth certificate. Even if you're using a passport, if that information is not pre-saved already, you can tell them about that later. I think those are Oh, and then you say that you're just staying in Orlando after the cruise. So you don't put in your return flight information right away either. And this is all going to be at midnight if you choose to do it on your check-in day. So if your check-in day is, the 9th or whatever, you would stay up late on the 8th, unless you live where Steve lives and you can just do it at 9 p.m. But it's midnight Eastern Standard Time. So you would stay up till midnight, basically the day before, or again, look at your time zones to see where you fall in that, and do your check-in. And then at the very end, you get your port arrival time. And then after that, I would do pick if you're platinum, for example, they already know this, but you would check to see if there was a cabana available. Or if you want to go to Palo lunch on Mother's Day at 11, I would make that the first thing you do. Whatever's the most important thing, you're going to try to do that first. If it's Jedi training, you're going to try to do that. Whatever it is, pick, just like at Disney, pick the most important thing and then sign up. Then, at a more reasonable hour or any time, get before the cruise, go in and fix all the information that you didn't do accurately, like put your passport number in there, or put your actual flight information and how you're arriving to the ship. But I cheat and just get through as quick as possible the first time, and then I fix it later at a more reasonable hour.
I'd actually heard that tip, and somehow, and I had done it that way and just zipped past everything and got to the last section, and we got an awesome port arrival time. I mean, I want to say it was 10:30 or 11. It was super early. I mentioned that in my other podcast. I counted on Disney Cruise Line transfer from our hotel to get there, which I thought would be fun, just like Disney Magic Express, and they show the videos, and it was fun, and they did show the videos. It was really cool. But I don't think they picked us up at Coronado Springs until a half hour after our arrival time. So I think they picked us up at 11:30, and we didn't get there until maybe 2 hours or so after, which I know you can't get on board till noon, and it was fine. But just that time to sit there, do our press pennies, look at that awesome model of the ship, meet Mickey, get the pictures taken. That stuff would have been nice to have a little time instead of, we're here, get right on the ship, so.
Which you can still do it, but I get it, because once you're allowed on the ship, you want on the ship.
You want to get on the ship. Yeah, right. So that was one thing that, as far as our arrival, I think next time we'll either rent a car or we'll Uber or Lyft to get there, or a private car, but somehow get ourselves to the boat instead. Or someone said you can actually get back to the airport and get in line for the Disney Cruise Line transfer. So
you could do that. That's a lot of effort. Frankly, after all of that and then still paying the $35, I would just pay for a private car. Because depending on how many people are in your party.
Right. Yeah. Right. It might be easier just to get picked up right at your hotel.
And you can do a rental car, but that is harder. That is more work as well. So
you got to get back to the airport or get one for an extra night or whatever. So probably Uber or Lyft or just a private car.
That's what I would recommend.
Well, cool. So I guess as we wrap things up today, as you can see, there's no right or wrong way to how to plan for that first cruise. There's a lot of things out there, and like the three of us, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're a huge Disney fan and you like to plan. But it's hard to do that first cruise. I'll freely admit it. But if you're lucky enough to go on a second or third, and if you keep on going, you tend to relax and enjoy it a little bit more and don't feel so rushed. But yeah, don't forget to relax and enjoy yourself while you're on that cruise as well.
That's true. I'm looking forward to, I alluded to it earlier, while we were on board, we did a bounce back offer, and we're cruising in winter of 2019 on a longer Eastern Caribbean. So we'll get to have that extra time and being experienced with stuff. It'll be fun to get to enjoy the ship.
Yeah.
Are you still glad that you picked a 4-night cruise for your first one, or do you wish you would have just gone right to the 7-night?
I go back and forth. I'm glad that we did a 4-night because you don't know it. Hindsight is 2020. You know now how awesome it was. But what if people were seasick, or what if we just missed being in the Disney parks and we only had 8-day vacation plan, so we couldn't do both if we had done a 7-night. So I'm also glad that we were able, I get the 10% off, and now because I'm silver, I got to book a day before the prices came out. So it was the lowest cost, the price, the day they come out, they're cheapest, the prices. And then we got 10% off, which was nice. So plus the $200 onboard booking. So I'm kind of glad all that. It takes a little bit of less expense off our next trip, and then it was still awesome. I mean, it was a little bit rushed, and I don't think I would have done fish exchange, but it was awesome. I'm glad we did it.
Well, cool. Well, thanks, Amy, for coming back on, and I know you're excited to be cruising back out there in 2019. It seems like a long ways away, maybe in some ways, but it goes by fast, doesn't it?
I'm excited. It's just a little bit over a year. It's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, and so I wish you the best of luck as you start thinking about that cruise and start planning for that one. And I really want to thank you once again for coming on and sharing your experiences and your tips and knowledge for all of our listeners out there.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you next time. Well, that is going to wrap up our show tonight, ending the second part of our DCL 101 series. And I really want to thank Amy for coming on and sharing her and her family's experiences as they traveled with Disney Cruise Line for the first time. She really was a wealth of knowledge and kind of passing on her tips and techniques as they went on their first cruise with DCL. And we are going to continue this series. We'll kind of intersperse them between several of our shows coming up, several trip reports coming up from a lot of listeners. I really appreciate you guys coming on and adding to the show as well. And I know the next one coming up is going to be, I think, traveling with a baby and a toddler. So hopefully these shows will help you prepare a little bit better as you're coming up for your first cruise, or if you're like my wife and I going on our fourth cruise here with DCL in May. You never stop learning from some of the great tips and techniques that all of our listeners have brought to the show. So I really appreciate it, and I hope it helps you out as well. So between now and our next show, if you want to get a hold of Christy and I, you can always get a hold of us on Facebook at DCL Podcast, or you can find me on Twitter at DCL Podcast. You can also find Christy over at packyourpixiedust.com, and she's also on Pack Your Pixie Dust on Facebook and Pack YR Pixie Dust on Twitter. If you've been enjoying this show and you know somebody else who could benefit from it, we'd love it if you'd share it with them, and it helps us grow the show and get the word out to others as well. So if you're headed out on your next cruise between now and our next show, all of us here at the DCL Podcast want to wish you fair winds and safe sailings as you head out on your next adventure. Once again, everybody, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.